This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley Smith.
Good day and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Today is Monday, December 11th of 2023. The weather may not feel like it, but we are in the last month of the year. Kind of crazy that we're already to that point, and we are still so glad you could join us for today's show. In today's episode, I talk with David Shirbroun of Boehringer Ingelheim about how parasites can lead to excess stress in your cattle herd, as well as ways to manage that stress. We also have a check of that ag weather outlook, but first, let's run down the markets.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
At the end of another trading day in the ag marketplace, we're talking with Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. Robin, what do we see in the grain markets today to start off this week?
Well, we saw a divergence between soybean complex and the corn and wheat complex. Corn was down, about 3-4 cents. Stayed that way much of the day. Soybeans were higher. Soybeans gained more strength as the day progressed a little bit. And wheat, on the other standpoint, actually weakened further as the day progressed. So we first of all had the export inspections today. Corn was at 28 million bushels. That was down a lot, down 18.3 million bushels from the previous week. Soybeans, 36.2 million bushels. That was down 6.9 million bushels from the previous week. Wheat was 10.4 million bushels, up 3.4 million bushels from a week ago. Now, we did have 132,000 metric tons of soybeans sold to an unknown destination. So we'll find out later where that went to. I would assume it might be China, but doesn't make much difference. So really, with the export inspections being lower relative to wheat being higher, we did see, like usual, the market moves in the opposite direction. But there were other things involved in that. Now, over the weekend, we didn't see quite the coverage of rain in Brazil in some areas that was anticipated, and that's kind of been standard for the last number of weeks. So not surprising, but in the 7 to 10 day forecast, they're looking at an upper pressure, a high pressure ridge, or that might suppress some of the thunderstorm activity in that area. And it also increases some of the heat in the central to the northern part of Brazil. Now, that's been a real concern as we've been moving through here, and each week that we progress and we don't see a lot of change to that, they're reducing some of the potential production. Now, some of the corn and soybean production forecasts have been reduced. There was a Congo intelligence that reduced soybeans to 160 million tons, which was down 4 million tons from their previous estimate. And they reduced the corn crop from 119.3 million tons down 2.3 million tons and that was down 2.3 million tons from their previous estimate. Now, Safras Mercado reduced bean estimate to 158.23 million tons now, down from 161.4 million tons in November. So we're seeing a continual decrease on some of those estimates at this point in time. Now, it's hard to say how soybeans could recover if they get a nice coverage of rain, but it put the concern into the market after the weekend that really provided some support. Now, also, the Panama Canal problems, they're saying now, are likely to continue over into maybe half of next year. Their rainy season doesn't start till the spring, and they're seeing some really low levels. So they're going to reduce some of the ships that can move through there shortly here. I think they're at 22 ships right now per day. They're going to reduce that down to 18. Normally, I think it's something like 32 that can go through there. So that's hindering things, and it's increasing costs of shipping because some of the ships are going different routes right now, which adds time, adds money to all of that. But then with that, also the Commitment of Traders report that we had showed funds. They were actually buyers of 55,195 corn contracts, futures contracts on the last report, buyers of 23,535 Chicago wheat, and buyers of 11,287 hard red winter wheat on the last Commitment of Traders report. But they still remain net short substantially in those markets. So if something happens, it could trigger short covering, but the trade right now, at least the funds anticipate that we're going to continue to see some pressure on the grain markets.
And then on the livestock side of things, obviously, you mentioned pressure. There's been a lot of pressure there. What did we see in those markets today?
Well, we saw a lot of pressure in for quite a while in the cattle market. Now, we did see some strength on Friday, but we saw previous to that, we saw continue to see lower cash prices. And cash last week was down $3 on an average in the South, $4 average northern dressed cattle. So that did not sit well during the earlier part of the week, but there was more probably a position squaring, short covering into the end of the week. So the market did rally. Now today we struggled initially. We were down early and then we came back. We did come back to over $2 on some of the contracts. So some of that follow through did finally kick in off of what we saw on Friday. Now, the positive thing we saw at noon was that choice cutouts, choice cuts or boxed beef was higher. Choice was up $2.44, select up $3.05. Last week, we just pretty much saw a decrease in boxed beef, each day. So this provides at least some hope. Now, if we see some little bit higher boxed beef prices, there is some underlying anticipation that we may see steady cash this week. After a number of weeks of decrease, we may see some steady cash. If that materializes, futures are underpriced relative to cash. If we see some steady cash, I think we could see some further short covering or some further buying as we move through the rest of this week. Now, hog futures, they may retest the lows. I mean, they saw pressure today. Morning cash was not reported due to Packer confidentiality. That seems to be a broken record on a Monday right now that we can't see that. But cutouts were up very strong at the midday report, up $4.41. That may supersede the weakness in futures today. However, we did see strong cutouts on Friday, and that didn't have any impact on today. But we did see some follow through. Now, we're not that far from the contract lows again. So technical traders might push to that contract low before they might see some short covering, some buying in there and trying to get that market moving higher in the longer term. Now, there was an outbreak in Hong Kong of African swine fever, resulting in more than 900 hogs having to be destroyed on the one farm. That's not a big thing in the big picture, but it's just something that does have an impact on the trade. Now, it didn't have an impact on potential for more exports from us, but something they take in the back of their mind because that is always something that's prevalent or a potential in the market. But for right now, hogs just are on the weak note. The anticipation is for no real trend to develop, and maybe in through the rest of the year with cash price potentially being lackluster.
Lots of great information today, Robin. For those of our listeners and our viewers who'd like to get in touch and learn more from the folks at agmarket.net, how can they do that?
They could call me directly if they would like at 877-256-3253 or go to our website, agmarket.net. There's a toll-free 844 number on there. Feel free to call in. Somebody will be glad to help you.
Great talking with you as always, Robin, and we look forward to getting more great market analysis from you soon.
All right. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
That again was Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. Let's go ahead and take a look at how those numbers close as seen on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network website at iowaagnet.com.
March corn is down 4 even at 481 and a half. January soybeans up 32 even at 1336 even. Soybean meal up 850 at 413.20. Soybean oil up 91 cents at 51.11. Chicago wheat down 22 and a quarter at 609 and a half. Kansas City hard red wheat down 28 and 3/4 at 632 and a quarter. Minneapolis spring wheat down 17 and 3/4 at 711 and 3/4. March oats down 9 and 3/4 at 345 and 3/4. On the Merc, December live cattle up 152 at 166.97. January feeders up 265 at 217.95. February lean hogs down 165 at 67.32. Pork cutout down 25 cents at 82.45. And December Class 3 milk up 3 cents at 16.23.
And that's been a check of the markets here on Ag Matters PM. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, I talk with David Shirbroun of Boehringer Ingelheim. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Well, we all know that parasites are definitely not a good thing for your cattle herd, but how much stress exactly does it add to that cattle herd, and are there maybe some unexpected ways that you could see stress kind of take effect in your cattle? I had the chance to talk with David Shirbroun of Boehringer Ingelheim to kind of talk about some of the ways that you can manage that parasite stress as well as other stresses that are potentially limiting the gains you're having in your cattle.
A big thing right now, of course, that cattle health and making sure your herd is healthy and performing optimally. A big thing is parasite control. So just tell us a little bit first off on some of the challenges that parasites pose to cattle herds.
Yeah, worms can be very destructive to cattle. And the thing that a lot of people don't realize, that they're subclinical signs usually. I mean, with the subclinical infections, the cattle get these worm infections. Obviously, the biggest thing that people think of is weight loss in mature animals, but for the growing animals, they just don't grow quite as well, so rate of gains are lower. But one of the big things that a lot of people don't realize is a heavy worm burden or even a mild worm burden can actually depress the immune system and cause cattle to get sick a lot easier. And then we also have the reproductive issues as well. You know, if cattle aren't perfectly healthy, reproduction's not gonna be a priority, so cows won't get bred as well or as tight as we want them to be. So if we can deworm cattle, we can get all those benefits, the weight gain, the reproduction benefits, and then the immune system health as well.
And then it's not just, if they have a severe infection, it's any infection at all is not desirable for that cow, because even having just a little bit of kind of extra disease pressure on those cattle, like you said, is going to cut down even just a little bit over the long term. That can really, add up on those profits.
Yeah, that's like you said, the infections with cattle are subclinical. We don't see them. I mean, they can look perfectly healthy, but if they have those worm burdens, they are affecting that animal. In the ways I already mentioned. So if we can clear those out, that will definitely help the health in the long term.
And then, of course, since it's, very hard to notice, it's very important to have like a very well-rounded protocol for managing those worms, those parasite issues. So just walk us through a little bit on what, is kind of recommended for producers, as well as what Boehringer Ingelheim can offer to really make sure that that plan is in place and working efficiently.
Yeah, the number one thing I really recommend for producers is work with your local veterinarian. They know the challenges that you're going to deal with. If there's current resistance issues with any of those worms, if you're bringing in cattle from somewhere else, what those issues could be as well. So always work with your veterinarian. Diagnostic testing is vitally important. See what kind of worm burdens we have. And since there's many different types of worms that respond to different drugs in different ways, what kind of worms are we actually dealing with? And that's one thing that's very important to do on the diagnostic side. One of the methods that we've been looking at lately and talking about is this concept of called refugia. So actually not treating a population, a certain percentage of the population, in order to maintain efficacy of our drugs. Because if we just always do a blanket treatments, we're going to start building up this resistance to some of the drugs that we have. So if we leave some animals untreated, that can actually help us prolong the use of our drugs. But then just making sure that we're using the right drug at the right time. So we've got two major classes of dewormers. We have the oral dewormers, which are very short-term purge dewormers, great for cattle going off of grass into a feedlot or on corn stalks. And then we have the macrocyclic lactones, injectables, porons, that are much better in the summer. So, and there's different varieties of those as well.
Now, and that fits in to the discussion as well of stress management in a cattle herd, because whether it's from parasites or just disease pressure in general, that stress is, obviously not good for the herd. And it's one of those things where stress in general is another limiting factor on the production and efficiency of the cattle, even if you might not think about it as much. So just tell us a little bit first off on just how stress in general relates to that cattle herd health.
Yeah. Cattle are definitely creatures of habit. They despise any kind of change. So, this time of year when we're looking at weaning calves, changing food rations, vaccinating, castrating, transportation, and obviously with the weather changes, those are all stressors that cattle just cannot handle very well, especially if we compound all those stresses together at once. So what we really want to try to do is spread those stresses out. So we don't want to really be weaning, castrating, vaccinating, shipping, and changing their feed ration on the same day. That's just too many stressors at once, and that will actually cause those cattle to get sick. So if we can spread those stressors out and just have good animal husbandry techniques, making sure that we're sheltering those cattle as much as we can from the cold and the wind and the snow, that really benefits the cattle in the long run and their health.
And then, of course, it's kind of similar to the parasite discussion where sometimes, that those stress indicators aren't so obvious to, what the cattle are experiencing. So obviously we all know, we've heard cattle bellowing in the feedlot before and indicating that they're very obviously stressed. But what are some of those signs of stress that producers should look out for in their cattle herds?
Yeah, signs of stress could be something as simple as the animal does not want to get up and come to eat. I mean, that could be a simple indicator of stress. We get stressed, we just lose our appetite. And that's what happens with the cattle as well. Obviously, changes of behavior can happen as well. We get the fight or flight. Cattle might become a little more irritable than they typically would have done, or they're more flighty and want to run away than typically as well. But if you're starting to see cattle with some nasal discharges or something like that, it could be a sign of stress coming on as well, and that sickness starting to take hold of that animal.
So then how can producers limit some of that stress that cattle are experiencing? Because we know it's, obviously disease plays a big part into stress, but there are some factors outside of disease, just in their physical environment that can cause that stress as well.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, just trying to spread out those stressors. Some of those stressors are inevitable. I mean, we have to wean calves. So, that's just one of those things that happen. We have to transport. But we really should not be doing those two stressors on the same day. We should try to wean calves one day, let them recover, ship them, when the time is right. But if we can get ahead of the game with vaccinations, that definitely helps as well to stave off some of that disease potential. So if we can vaccinate, a month or two ahead of a stress event, that will definitely help prevention of disease. And if we're dealing with these stressful events, we might have to look at doing some antibiotic metaphylaxis and treating them with an antibiotic, trying to get ahead of the game in that manner as well. But great husbandry techniques are really what's going to prevent those stressors from causing those animals to get sick.
And like you mentioned earlier, obviously talking with a herd veterinarian, a great way to find out what methods are best for an individual herd, but in general for people who might be interested in learning more from Boehringer Ingelheim specifically, where can they go to find more information on herd health and some of your guys' products?
If you're interested in knowing more about Boehringer Ingelheim, cattlefirst.com is an excellent spot. We have a Facebook page as well. Our sales reps out in the field are very, very knowledgeable and very accessible. So, talk with your veterinarian, they can get you in touch with our sales reps as well.
That again was David Shirbroun of Boehringer Ingelheim. Let's go ahead and take a look out the weather window with that ag weather outlook. Not much to say again. I'm kind of sounding like a broken record at this point with temperatures that are warmer than you would expect for this time of year. Over the weekend, we did get a taste of that winter weather again. It was pretty cold, a little bit of snow depending on where you were, but none of us stuck to the ground. As for the rest of the week, looking at those warmer than normal temperatures, so not much to complain about unless you are somehow a huge fan of frigid temperatures. So let's see what the National Weather Service has in store for the next 24 hours.
As you can see from the National Weather Service, today we have sunny skies and cooler temperatures, with those highs ranging from the upper 30s to upper 40s. Tonight, variably cloudy skies and cold temperatures, those lows ranging from the upper teens to mid-20s. And tomorrow, we will have increasing clouds in the west. Otherwise, it will be mostly sunny, highs ranging from the low to upper 30s. And taking a look at the affiliate weather map for tomorrow, Cherokee will see increasing clouds with a high of 31. Shenandoah increasing clouds as well, high of 38. Des Moines mostly sunny, high of 35. Waterloo sunny and 34. Albion mostly sunny and 36. Clinton sunny skies and 33 degrees.
For a more detailed forecast in your part of the state, make sure to check in with your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate. It's been a check of the Ag Weather Outlook, and that also brings us to the end of this episode of Ag Matters PM. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. Also follow us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and LinkedIn. You can find our video content as well as previous episodes of AMPM on our YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to see when those videos go live. Don't forget as well our free Twice Daily Market podcast on Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Mark Magnuson, Dustin Huffman, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.